Picture this. It's 1985. You walk into a job interview carrying the briefcase your dad insisted would last a lifetime. You shake hands. The manager, whose hair absolutely defies both physics and good judgment, asks you 5 questions, smiles, and then says, "Great energy. You can start Monday." Simple, human, predictable.
Now jump into 2025. You apply online, upload your CV, hit submit. 17 seconds later, you get a response. Our AI screening system has determined that your behavioral signature does not align with the success profile for this role. You ask, behavioral signature? Dude, I just wanted to answer phones and maybe get some dental.
The tragic part is you didn't even lose to a person. You lost to a vibe-checking spreadsheet with commitment issues.
Same species, same ambitions, completely different operating systems.
Welcome back to A to Z FinTech, where we decode finance, tech, people, and power. So you don't have to pretend you skimmed that 110-page McKinsey deck on your commute. I'm Aman.
And I'm Zubin, your friendly fintech provocateurs, still recovering from my daughter asking me if cassette tapes were like square iPods for old people. You know, man, back then the vibes were simpler. Now we're living in what economists politely call the vibe session, where the numbers say everything is fine, but the vibes say the universe is glitching.
Carlota Perez would call this a turning point, the chaotic middle between two eras. The industrial age rules are decaying. The intelligence age rules haven't been written. So everything feels slightly broken.
Yeah, and so Aman, today we're unpacking, and to our listeners, the evolution from farms to factories to feeds and how finance, or what we call the money OS, needs to evolve.
And yes, in case you haven't figured this out, it's an 80s theme today because Wham, as you will see shortly, isn't about your last Christmas.
All right, before compliance rickrolls us, this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only. They are our views, not those of any organizations who we both work for. Also not financial advice. This is not quit your job and become a creator advice. Think of us as that loud table in a cafe, fun to listen to, but no replacement of your CFA or therapist.
Let's zoom out, Zubin. For most of human history, work meant farming. You didn't pick a job, you inherited one. Your bosses were weather and the local guy with the biggest sword.
Yeah, if you made it through winter, your bonus was not dying.
Then came the Industrial Revolution with factories, steam, electricity. Suddenly we invent the job, the wage, the pension, the weekend, the career ladder, and the middle class, and crucially, the safety net.
But Aman, that wasn't inevitable. It was actually fought for. Unions battled for weekends. Governments created unemployment insurance. You know, here's what historians won't tell you. The 80s weren't the golden age. They were actually the beginning of the unraveling.
Union membership in the US dropped from 35% in the 1950s to 16% by 1983. Reagan and Thatcher were dismantling the stability we now romanticize. Pension coverage had peaked in the 70s. The 80s felt stable for a specific cohort, white collar, predominantly male. But the industrial age social contract was already fraying, Zubin.
So when we talk about the 80s being stable, what we really mean is that it was the last moment that the illusion of stability was broadly shared.
And then digital arrived. The internet, smartphones, platforms, and now AI. Work stopped being a place. Work became a portfolio.
Your office is wherever your laptop opens and later your phone goes. Your career isn't a ladder, it's a playlist.
And all the institutions built in the industrial age, banks, pensions, labor laws, mortgage underwriting, are still speaking 1950s English. Workers are speaking 2025 modular emoji.
Yeah, and that mismatch is why everything feels so off.
So what's driving this glitchy feeling? We believe it's a mixtape of 4 forces hitting simultaneously. And because we are committed to our 80s theme, they'll spell one of the decade's most iconic duos.
So you are serious about Wham, aren't you?
Yes, Zubin. Lose your jitterbug. This wham explains the structural shift reshaping work.
Right, wake me up before you go to your independent worker job.
All right,
Love it.
let's do
Love
this, right?
Love it.
Is for walls, fragmentation, and nationalism. Globalization may have just peaked. Now we're seeing trade walls, data localization, supply chain nationalism, Brexit, US China decoupling, GDPR, all creating compliance moats.
So, how does this affect that independent worker? Well, directly. Cross border remittances get harder, platform access fragments by region. A creator in Nigeria cannot monetize like one in California. All of this, while paradoxically, the internet and Rails are technically bringing stuff together.
Walls isn't just macro noise, it's reshaping who can participate in the platform economy and on what terms. Next up is H for human agency, or workers essentially reclaiming control. Workers want autonomy, control over time, place, identity, and meaning. The hierarchy is melting.
Let's be honest, Gen Zs didn't invent the side hustle. They just turned it into an operating system. But be your own boss often means absorb all the risk while the platform takes 30%.
And human agency is rising, but so is uncertainty. The flexibility that lets you work from Bali also means no sick days, no pension, no HR.
Right. Freedom is great until you need that dental surgery.
Touche. A is for automation. If you like, the AI reshuffling of this deck. AI isn't just removing jobs wholesale, it's unbundling jobs into tasks. Some automated, some augmented, and some more human.
Yeah, and we read this MIT research report that shows that automation creates this polarization. High-skilled jobs grow and low-skilled jobs grow, but it's that middle-skilled job that just vanishes. It's the barbell economy.
And the people caught in the middle bear the transition costs. Who pays for retraining? How long is displacement? What happens to the 45-year-old accountant whose job just got automated?
Yeah, AI is that new synthesizer, reshaping the sound, not removing the music. But someone still has to learn that new instrument.
It's easy, Zubin, to focus on that displacement and see it as structural failure. But this massive early inequality is a feature of transition, not the destination. When the Industrial Revolution began, wealth concentration exploded. It took unions and government intervention to build out that middle class. Today's creator economy has an eye-watering Gini coefficient of 0.89. South Africa is at 0.63 and the US 0.49, showing how wealth concentrates at the top. But just like the industrial age, the current chaos is that painful, necessary stage before new social contracts and infrastructure are built to stabilize the system.
Yeah, so Aman, what you're telling us is that the current anxiety is not an irreversible decline, it's just an emergence.
That's correct. Now let's keep moving. M of WHAM is for modularity, the playlistification of everything. Careers used to be albums, one employer, predictable track list. Now the playlists, multi-income, multi-platform. You might be an Uber driver, a freelance designer, a YouTube creator, and an Etsy seller all in the same week.
Yeah, Raman, that modularity comes with volatility. Imagine last month, $8,000, this month, maybe $1,000. Your income looks like a seismograph during an earthquake.
And the systems built for album era workers, payslip based mortgages, employer sponsored insurance, 40-year pension plans can't handle the playlist era income.
Yeah, and to sum it up, Aman, the WHAM forces aren't neutral. They're creating these winners and losers. They concentrate power. Without intervention, they will amplify inequality.
So now let's talk about what these forces are creating, the one-person enterprise, the independent worker, and the small business, and how that's booming.
Wait. Didn't the 80s kill small business? Walmart, corporate consolidation?
Exactly. The 80s were great hollowing out. But then something changed in the US. Back into 2020, we saw 4.5 million new job applications. In 2021, that went up to 5.5 million. And 2022 sort of maintained that pace. Record numbers, the highest in American history.
Someone 2020, what was driving this?
Well, COVID to some extent was an accelerant, but
Oh, wow, I wish I
more
could forget those
fundamental.
years.
Sorry?
I totally wish I could forget those years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you and me. But I mean, as we were saying, COVID to some extent was an accelerant, but more fundamentally, it was three things. First was platforms lowering barriers. You don't need a storefront or a warehouse. Shopify is your store, GCP, AWS, Azure is your infrastructure. Second is that remote work normalized solo operating or independent work. And then three was the great resignation, was really the great reevaluation. Millions said no to Zoom meetings about Q3 roadmaps.
Yeah, and that's just in the US, right? What about other massive democracies in the world? I don't know, India maybe as an example.
Yeah, so India, good point, over 63 million MSMEs, that's micro, small, and medium enterprises. They contribute 30% of the GDP and employ over 110 million, but only 14% of them have access to formal credit. Massive underserved market growing fast with UPI and Aadhaar and the whole digital public infrastructure, enabling micro entrepreneurs everywhere.
That's wild. That's wild. And really opens up the one-person enterprise. But what is that exactly? Someone running what looks operationally like a full company, but it's just them. A YouTuber with 500,000 subscribers is essentially a media company. A freelance developer with 10 repeat clients is a consultancy. They have expenses, they have revenue, they have cash flows, they have growth projections, but no employees. So the tools that required 50 people can now be wielded by one person with the right stack. There are already YouTubers earning like staggering numbers, like that 10 to 20 million annually. Newsletter writers with subscribers earning in the millions. These people aren't self-employed traditionally. They're enterprises, one-person corporations.
An inspiration for podcasters like you and me. But
soon to be millionaires. No,
yeah,
soon.
exactly. Coming soon.
Too soon.
Thanks for your support. But we need to understand the nature of this transition. And Zubin, I got another framework named after the epic Madonna. It's a blueprint for reinvention, just like her. Era 1 of 3 was what I call the material world shift. In the 60% of US jobs were manual labor. Today, it's under 10%. Add to that, McKinsey estimates that 50% of these tasks can be automated by 2030. The move from wrench to spreadsheet to prompt is on. Era 2, let's call that the like a prayer collaboration. Remote work has jumped from 5% to 60% overnight, accelerated by COVID, as we discussed. We're not going back, regardless of RTW mandates. We've settled into a hybrid, moving towards ambient work with continuous asynchronous global employees. And then lastly, era 3 or Vogue adaptation, the barbell we talked about. Here's the uncomfortable truth, Zubin. The creator economy, top 1% earn about 80% of the revenue. The bottom 90% earn just $1,000 annually.
That's crazy, Aman. So why doesn't this terrify us?
Well, because there's precedent. The Industrial Revolution had exactly the same pattern. Massive early inequality before stabilization. When factories emerged, wealth concentration exploded. The unions then organized, governments regulated, and safety nets were built. The middle class emerged.
So what you're saying is this inequality is a feature of transition, not the destination.
Yes.
And we're kind of in this chaotic early phase. The gap should narrow if we build the right infrastructure, if platforms evolve, if regulation protects workers, if financial services adapt.
Now, let's talk about what's enabling these one-person enterprises, Zubin. The secret is you're not alone. You have a team, but it's predominantly digital tools for now with agents. We've covered that before as we develop, agentic AI.
Yeah, and let's break this down, right? Like platforms have become that new C-suite for solo workers or independent workers. And if we really break that even further, your CRO sales, think Uber, Fiverr, Upwork, YouTube, essentially find customers for you, right? They handle the discovery, the matching supply and demand, and you don't need to cold call. These platforms are your sales force. That's sales. Let's what about marketing, right? Like who's your CMO? And think about Instagram, TikTok, even your LinkedIn handles as we do it. Handle the distribution, amplification, and targeting. Marketing is now a platform function. Your operations or your COO, think Shopify, handles storefront, inventory, fulfillment, or Amazon's FBO manages your warehouses, Stripe handles your payments. Operations that have typically required 20 people now happen via API calls. Let's not forget tech. Your CTO, this is your AWS, your Google Cloud, provides compute, storage, databases. A solo developer doesn't need to buy servers. They just spin up cloud instances. And then HR, right? Like your CHRO. Oh, wait. You don't have one because you don't have any people, right?
The ultimate lean org chart. But this is actually a problem, Zubin. No HR means no one managing burnout, development, benefits. And this is where we, as a fintech podcast, must focus. Platforms are rapidly becoming your CFO, the money OS. This is the most under-discussed transformation happening right now. Uber isn't just a ride-hailing app, it's payroll, paying you multiple times a day. It's your treasury managing when you get paid. It's your cash flow management system with instant payment. And it's your tax advisor processing 1099s for you. It also helps you with dynamic pricing. Think surge pricing equals bonus compensation. Shopify, we talked about, isn't just storefront. It's a payments infrastructure, working capital with Shopify Capital, FX management, business intelligence, and revenue forecasting. Let's take YouTube. That isn't just a video platform. It's a monetization engine with revenue diversification and analytics and payout management.
Right. Platforms are becoming full stack financial operating systems for millions of independent workers. They're not competing with banks. They're essentially becoming the bank.
Or more precisely, they're becoming the CFO layer, Zubin. The banks are becoming the regulated infrastructure underneath them.
True. But platforms optimize for their interests, not the workers' interest. Uber wants you to drive more. YouTube wants you to post more. They're not necessarily optimizing for your financial health or your long-term security. And frankly, if there is a better option like driverless, they will swap you out without thinking twice.
Which is why the world needs, and this is big and really important, an independent money OS. Financial infrastructure that works for workers, not for platforms.
So what do platform workers, these one-person enterprises, actually need? Aman, you and I have talked about these 5 financial primitives, the building blocks of the new money OS. In the industrial age, if the industrial age was the past and the intelligence age is the present, then the current financial system is like the DeLorean only running on plutonium. It was great in 1985, but we need that Mr. Fusion upgrade, something that runs on modern volatility. We need infrastructure that is simply the best. Through financial infrastructure.
Tina references, keeping the 80s alive. So the 5 primitives we discussed are the ability to see your money, move your money, borrow money, and then grow and protect your money. Let me take a shot at explaining the first, seeing your money. This is about real-time multi-stream visibility. This is more than viewing your balance or transaction. Traditional banking gives you a monthly PDF or statement. But platform workers earn continuously from Uber, Etsy, YouTube, Patreon, name it. They need unified real-time visibility across all income streams, portable across platforms.
That's right, Aman. And right now, if you're earning from, let's say, 5 platforms, you're probably manually tracking 5 dashboards, maybe 3 PIN processors, and praying your spreadsheets, assuming you have one, doesn't get corrupted.
And zero ability to forecast. Will I earn 3,000, 7,000 next month? You genuinely don't know. You can't plan rent, groceries, or even your health insurance. What workers need is a unified financial OS that allows you to see all of your money in one place in real time with predictive insights.
Right. Let's move on. Primitive 2 is close to my heart. Moving your money, instant, low cost, programmable. Uber pays their drivers multiple times daily in some market. Independent workers can't wait 2 weeks for ACH batch settlement from the 1970s. Meanwhile, banks still treat payments like moving gold bars on donkey carts. And when it comes to international payments, that Filipino freelancer working for US client probably uses somewhere that 7 to 10% of just fees and FX spreads. We've shown this in the past. We've talked about this in our real-time episode. Brazil's Pix processes payments in 10 seconds, 24/7 and free. India's UPI handles billions monthly with near zero friction. Real-time rails exist. Banks just need to use them better and more interoperably. And we haven't even touched about programmable money. Now imagine there was a handyman buying materials, and imagine they had this smart contract that's essentially pulled funds directly from the client's escrow account. So he pays absolutely zero out of pocket. The moment the job ends, his income instantly splits between tax, insurance, and any profits get deposited into their bank. He drives home with his accounting finished before even the engine starts. In short, moving money needs to be instant, low cost, programmable, that matches how you actually earn.
Okay, primitive 3, borrowing money or underwriting for volatility. This is where the system, I think, Zubin, really most dramatically fails. Traditional lending asks for payslips. Platform workers have volatility. I'll give you an example. Meet Divya, a YouTuber, 400,000 subscribers, earns about 180 grand last year across AdSense, sponsorships, Patreon. 3 years of consistent growth, and she wants to buy an apartment. The bank says, do you have a W-2? Divya says, I have an analytics dashboard that shows you 3 years of audience growth and revenue. Bank says, we don't underwrite dashboards. The unbankable millionaire moment. The algo says you're a star. The bank says you're invisible. Banks must move from income history to cash flow underwriting. Use platform data, subscriber behavior, client retention, and project pipelines. Price for volatility. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. A creator's payslip is their analytics dashboard. A gig or independent worker's creditworthiness is their earnings patterns across platforms over time. The new economy needs new credit underwriting rules that understand portfolios, volatility, and multi-platform income.
So we saw the C, we saw the move, we saw the borrow, which brings us to primitive 4, which is growing your money. Micro investing, portable pensions. Retirement in the industrial age was work 40 years, get a pension, and retire. In today's intelligence age, 17 different income sources across 40 years. How do you even build a retirement? And the answer cannot be manually transfer money from 7 different platforms to your pension. This needs to be automated. Micro savings across every income stream. Little drips from every gig. Auto invested, compounding across decades. Uber could auto save 5% of every ride. YouTube could auto invest 10% of AdSense. Fiverr could, potentially round up your earnings.
And Zubin, critically, portability. Your pensions can't be locked into Uber. It must travel across platforms, careers, and borders. This is happening slowly. I've been a board advisor to a micro pensions platform called Pinbox for over 4 years. And we're really starting to see the green shoots around this. Singapore is testing, for example, gig economy contributions. France has mandated platform contributions, and the UK is exploring auto-enrollment for platform workers. The future pension contribution isn't monthly, it's continuous.
Right, and that brings us to primitive number 5, which is protecting your money. Insurance for algorithmic risk. Now, if your boss is an algo, you need algorithmic insurance. Income protection looks completely different. And let's play that out, right? Like you need income smoothing, which is essentially buffer for volatile months. You need, potentially platform failure insurance. What happens if YouTube suddenly demonetizes your channel, right? Like now what? You need health coverage that is not tied to one employer. You need algorithmic error protection. What happens if the system miscalculates your pay? And then finally, it's disability coverages that understand multiple income sources, on-demand insurance, parametric triggers, peer-pooled coverage, slice offer per ride insurance, collective pools, freelancers for, group health potentially.
Absolutely, Z. Imagine your income drops 40% for 2 consecutive months. Automatic income smoothing insurance covers 50% of that gap for 6 months while you rebuild. Or you're a YouTuber and YouTube changes its algo and your views drop by 60%. Platform failure insurance compensates you for 3 months while you diversify.
Aman, while we were prepping for this, one of the things we talked about was parametric insurance already works for weather in agriculture, right?
Yeah.
Think of smart contracts can trigger payouts based on verifiable data. And so to sum it up, that's the fifth primitive, right? Protection that matches algorithmically managed multi-platform work.
So shifting gears, here's the core issue, Zubin. The Money OS was built for individuals and large employers, the historic one. Everything flows from employment. Your bank account, health insurance, pension, credit scores, even your mortgage eligibility.
Yeah, maddening, right? Like, and in the world where independent workers have multiple income sources, no single employer, and careers that potentially even look like just stock charts, that system is structurally obsolete.
The Money OS must pivot from employer centric to individual or even in entity centric, from static to dynamic, from monthly to continuous, from payslips to patterns.
You know what, Aman? And we've talked a lot about banks, and to us, the banks that do evolve will evolve from being just deposit vaults to identity engines, instant powering entities at scale. From that rigid underwriting to behavioral lending, from employer-linked benefits to worker-linked benefits, and potentially from monthly statements to real-time life graphs.
The banks that win will say, we see your multi-platform income. We understand your volatility. We're smoothing out your cash flow, growing your wealth, protecting your downside. And that's not charity. By 2030, there will be 2 billion independent workers globally. That's a multi-trillion-dollar market opportunity.
So, Aman, this is a massive transformation with some clear opportunities and risk. Keeping with the theme, let's throw down the now greatest hits, but let's keep it to 5 only.
So, Zubin, let me tell you about what keeps me up at night about this.
Uh-oh.
The first is platform dependency. One algorithmic change and income evaporates, no recourse or union to fall back on. Number 2 is predatory finance. Payday loans in fintech clothing, offering get paid today that translates to really 400% APRs. Number 3 is inequality amplification. Winner takes all economy powered by the creator Gini coefficient that we talked about. Number 4 is burnout. No colleagues, no boundaries, and no off switch since algos never sleep. And then 5th, benefits gap. The system built for employees means independent workers fall through the safety net. There isn't one for them, and they lack health insurance or paid leave.
I'm feeling like walking on sunshine. And let's talk a little about the massive upsides that will come out of this, right? Number 1, global micro entrepreneurship. Imagine that teenager in Lagos that can now monetize globally, turning geographic arbitration into talent arbitration. My wife works for Netflix, and I've seen that happen with content, which typically required a studio and production. Netflix has completely democratized content. And for me, some of my favorite shows are Korean shows.
You and my kids.
K-pop Demon Hunters. Number 2 is a portable identity. Your reputation, credentials, and work history travel with you. You own your data. Third one is worker-owned IP. Creators retain those rights, build equity. Imagine that musician now owning their own masters. The fourth one is AI-enabled personal CFO. We talked at length about this, which are tools that forecast cash flow, optimize taxes, auto-invest, and warn about those concentration risks. I think the final one is pretty wild, which is power redistribution. And right now, platforms are concentrated, but we are seeing a rise of platform cooperatives and worker-owned marketplaces. When workers own the platforms, fees drop, transparency increases, long-term thinking replaces extraction. These prove that the model works. And even if they remain niche, their existence creates competitive pressure.
We've moved from fields to factories to feeds to algorithms. The WAM forces love that. Walls, human agency, automation, modularity. These aren't breaking work, they are rewriting it. We're not living in failure, we're living in transition. The Industrial Revolution was violent, chaotic, deeply unequal. But eventually, we built unions, safety nets, weekends, pensions. We created a social contract that made broadly shared prosperity possible. We're in that same moment again. The question isn't whether work has changed. It has, most definitely. The question is whether the money OS will evolve to match. Because right now, we're running the intelligence age work patterns on industrial age financial infrastructure. And the mismatch is creating precarity and anxiety. But this isn't an irreversible decline. This is emergence. The tools exist. Real-time payments, behavioral underwriting, portable pensions, algorithmic insurance, Zubin's favorite, platform cooperatives, worker-owned infrastructure. We can see the future. We're just building it too slowly. So to builders, banks, policymakers, platforms, and workers, stop designing for the neat payslip carrying 40 years of careers. Start designing for the messy, multi-income, portfolio career, independent worker. That worker is the future. And they're already here, all 2 billion of them. The one-person enterprise isn't a trend. It's the dominant form of economic organization in the intelligence age. Both the future billionaire and the comfortable freelancer deserve infrastructure that works. If the 80s taught us anything, it's that reinvention isn't chaos. It's the opening notes of the next great track. Work has already changed. Money must now catch up.
So the industrial age created that employer or the employee. The intelligence age is creating the entrepreneur, whether they want to be one or not.
The question is whether we build infrastructure that makes that transition fair, sustainable, and human.
You know what? This was a wild journey. I love creating this. And this kind of brings us to the end of today's podcast. Truly a fun one to create. And to our listeners, stay curious, stay purposeful, stay adaptable, and may your income streams harmonize like that perfectly remastered 80s ballad.
And remember, you're not just an independent worker. You're a one-person enterprise. Demand the financial infrastructure you deserve.